Oh, sorry. No, I'm mixing my planets up. Never mind.
You thought
Oh,
Death
okay.
Star was blood
I
of
was
a
thinking
crystal.
Alderaan. I thought Alderaan,
No,
not
not
Coruscant.
Alderaan. Coruscant. Yeah.
Yeah, Expedia has new trips for Alderaan.
Oh shit, we lost Keith.
That's really the cold open. And then you play it properly with the music.
Hello, everybody.
I told you it was too early for Keith, right? You gotta give him another 20 minutes.
I was shocked that he was on when I joined. I was like, oh shit, I'm the last person.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Heroes Peak podcast. May the 4th be with you. I am your host, Chris, sitting in my Star Wars socks, drinking out of my Star Wars mug. And I'm here with my co-hosts, as always. We have James. How you doing, James?
Yeah, keep your religion to yourself. May the 4th be with you. Otherwise, I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for asking. How are you?
All right. I think I'm better than last week.
Oh yeah, last week. Stumbling.
All right, Mike, how you doing, Mike?
I'm okay. Is it some kind of special day or something today? I don't. What's all the hubbub about?
No, that's tomorrow.
Ooh, Cinco
That's
de
right.
Mayo.
Revenge of
That's
the
right.
Sith.
Yeah.
We did have Keith for a minute, but seems to have lost him. We'll talk to him when he gets back in. Today we have all Star Wars content all the time. Just to celebrate the day, I'll talk about nothing but one of our favorite series. So on the slate today, we've got the Clone Wars. I did stop and watch season 7, episode 9 through 12, so we can actually talk
Good
about
man.
that.
Good man. Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
I believe we all watched at least A New Hope. Again, obviously we've all seen them a million times.
Yeah, I watched
I haven't
Hope and
watched it
Jedi.
recently.
No, sorry, Hope and Empire. So.
Yeah, definitely seen the. Yeah, I've seen Empire recently, and the over the weekend they were playing Phantom Menace: Attack of the Clones. I watched that.
Mm-hmm.
I got for some reason episode 3 is playing on the TV upstairs right now. So.
Yeah, great. We can talk about. Well, all right, and 2 documentaries. I'm gonna talk about 2 documentaries real quick, and I'll probably mention them as we're talking about the other stuff. And we'll start with one bit of Star Wars news that just came out today. I think it was today, which is Taika Waititi getting his own feature film with Oscar nominee Christy Wilson Cairns to co-write the screenplay. So did you guys hear about this?
Yeah, I also
yeah.
heard they're going to give him a series as well.
Yeah, that I heard.
Did you see that? Yeah.
A series? No, there's someone else was getting a series. All right, I'm gonna have to read the whole thing now.
I'll find the article. There was he's getting a movie, and then they're giving him a series as well.
Here it is. Headland. No. So, in addition, Emmy-nominated writer Leslie Headland from Russian Doll and The Bachelorette is currently developing a new untitled Star Wars series. Headland will write, executive produce, and serve as the showrunner. So it's 2 different
series.
stories in one.
Oh, is it?
So it's
okay. My
yeah.
bad. All right. No, I thought.
Sorry, I was just gonna say Waititi and Carnes are doing the movie, and Headland got a series.
Okay, because what I'm looking at IndieWire says, directing, writing new feature film. That's Taika. Christy Cairns, she's writing the movie.
She's a co-writer, yeah.
Yeah, and why does she sound familiar? I know she wrote 1917, but
really?
Oh,
that was good.
Yeah.
I like 1917.
The name sounds familiar because what else did she write? Penny Dreadful. She was a writer.
Yeah, I've been watching Penny Dreadful.
It's just one of those names like you
have a DVR. I'm gonna watch it.
Well, it's a dark series, and I watched a lot of dark things at the same time, and so I got kind of overwhelmed, and so I've switched modes, and so I haven't gone back to finish the series. Unless it's the new series, which is the Los Angeles in the, I don't know, 20s or 30s or something, which is not what I'm watching. I'm watching the first series of Penny Dreadful, but it's heavy. It's not something you can just plow through. um,
Yeah,
anyway,
I
so
haven't watched that one yet. So
It's in my DVR queued for when I get a break.
yeah. Good luck with that, right?
Thanks.
hey, you know what? Be glad. Be glad. It's always, my mom always says, better to be too busy at work than not busy enough, right?
Yeah, I know. Yes, thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me. Yes, I get it.
Well, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say, so I think this is good news. Taika Waititi, we liked what he did in The Mandalorian, and when we go and talk about the documentary, the new docu-series about The Mandalorian, they do a whole section on Taika Waititi. He gets as much as Dave Filoni does in the.
So Chris, what's the name of this documentary? The one you're talking
Okay,
about.
so it's a docu-series. So only one episode was released, and it's a docu-series called, I wrote it down, Disney Gallery: The Mandalorian, or like the Star Wars Mandalorian, or some huge long, emancipation of the Mandalorian, or something like that.
Okay, so it's just about the Mandalorian series?
So I have a feeling it's going to be a docu-series that's starting with the Mandalorian and is going to go from there. So the first episode was called The Directors. So it literally talked about each director. They had a round table with kind of hosted by Jon Favreau, and he talked to and about each of the directors from the first season of Mandalorian. So for those who didn't know, Mandalorian had multiple directors, and I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. So Deborah Chow, you'll know, Rick Famuyiwa. He directed from Dope. You know him. Bryce Dallas Howard, as in High Heels, Running Away from Dinosaurs, but also she has directed before. Yeah. Taika Waititi, obviously you know him from a few things, and Dave Filoni. Those of you who are fans of the Clone Wars and
the
Rebels,
man, the master himself.
Yes, the savior through Kathleen Kennedy.
So it was an interesting series. It wasn't long. It was only about an hour. This episode, and so it really heavily featured Dave Filoni and Taika Waititi. They were kind of the main features, but you only got a little bit about each of the other directors. Mostly Jon Favreau telling them how great they are, and they telling you how they got into Star Wars. But
so, did you say you said this was a round table?
Yeah, it's a round table, and you get lots of behind the scenes shots. So it's not an interview one-on-one.
Right.
They all sat together at the same time and talked. But
yeah, so he did this. Favreau did this for the MCU, right? Did you ever see that one?
No, I have not. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's on one of the special features, I think, for it might have been for one of the Captain America movies where he got Russo's, he's got Whedon, he's got Taika on there. Yeah, he did the same kind of thing for the MCU. If I find it, I'll send you the link.
It's one of the DVD extras or Blu-ray extras for that. I think I remember seeing that.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
I was messaging you guys while I was watching it, so there was a couple of funny stories. Mostly, like I said, Dave Filoni probably got the most time, and it's funny. He is a huge nerd. Like not like normal nerd, not like I'm a successful director nerd, like huge nerd. and it's funny.
Which is
It
weird
really
because every
is.
time you see him, every time you see it, I see a picture of him. He's got that like cowboy hat on, right?
Yeah, he had the cowboy hat on, and he's got a jacket that says "We are wolves" or something, and then he's just like, oh man,
he
it's funny.
he looks like a
And
character from oh my gosh, why can't I think of the show now? The Tiger Show.
oh my god,
You know what I
Tiger
mean?
King,
Like he,
Tiger
Yeah,
King.
King.
Tiger King. He looked like he
Oh,
fit right in there.
By the way, you know he's around our age. He's 45, so he's
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
oh, this isn't putting him down. I'm sure he would say the same thing about himself,
no,
but
but
it
it's
was
good
funny.
seeing somebody of that age group still, creating
Exactly.
content and being proud to be
Yeah.
a nerd, all that good stuff, in spite of Hollywood.
No, I mean, you got to give props to Favreau and Filoni and these guys because they're keeping
Well,
it,
he has a story about how when he first got offered the job for working on Rebels,
Mm,
and he was apparently working on Avatar: The Last Airbender. So
hmm.
we know how good that series is, or I know how good that
Yes,
series is. I don't know about
which
you
is
guys.
back on Netflix, by the way.
Oh,
Well,
all right,
we
we're
all
going
know.
to watch that, and we are going to
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
that
we
series.
should.
But
I definitely want to rewatch that series because it's so good. Although, just sorry, quick sidebar.
no, go
What
ahead.
did you guys think of the Next Generation one they did? You know what I'm
The
talking about
what?
with the girl?
What?
They did that. The
Oh,
Airbender. They
Legend
did
of
that.
Korra. Legend
Korra,
of,
that's the
or
one.
not Legend.
Yeah.
Not Legend. Is it Legend of Korra? Am I blanking? I think it is.
Mm,
Yeah, Legend of Korra. Yeah, no, that was
yeah.
great. That was a great series. It
Okay, I
was.
saw like
It
the
was.
first season and then that was it. So.
Well, they made it very different. It's not like it's a hey, this is just Aang again, but in a different
Mm,
body. You
hmm.
know, she's a very different character, and I think they did a good job of separating that and updating the world that they lived in. That was a big, huge thing. Is the world was updated.
Yeah, more modern. I like that too.
Yeah, it was very steampunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
man, I've been in documentary since this Jordan documentary. Just I have just been mainlining documentaries. Well, they're not nothing's to the Last Dance level because that's like history and
Last
like
Dance level. You mean
dirt,
Tiger King level?
I
right?
actually did more than Tiger King. That's what the latest news over the
Yeah.
weekend.
Oh yeah.
so
Yeah.
so so the one interesting thing I wanna bring up that was said during this docu series that Dave Filoni said he said he was talking to George Lucas, and George Lucas was telling him how the Jedi would negotiate, and they were like somewhere between samurai and gangsters, and they would sit down, put their lightsaber on the table, and say this is what's going to happen. And I want to get your guys' opinion on that view of the Jedi. Not this like peaceful warrior if I have to guy, but like just like that's a weird vision for me.
I mean, it's only weird now because we have like 30 years of background on the Jedi. But if you
Yeah.
started this franchise from scratch, I could definitely see it that way. You know,
But also, yeah, you would think. But I mean, I gotta imagine that because there's a lot of things George says like that he wanted to do or that the way these guys should have been that didn't actually turn up on film, right? So I would
Right.
imagine that's just another thing he wanted or he imagined. So and it just didn't he just didn't get a chance to make it a reality. That's all.
I mean, I remember an interview of his where he was really looking into the old spaghetti westerns, Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns,
Hmm.
and I can see where he was probably
Yeah.
thinking of a Jedi like Clint Eastwood's The Man or No Name. But I guess it probably didn't get traction with some of the executives. They're like, "Well, we're going to be selling toys with these, so we need more of the furry teddy bears and less of the gunslingers."
Well, the other documentary I watched, it's called Empire of Dreams, and it's the story of the original trilogy, and George Lucas' creation of the original trilogy, and a little backstory on George himself. And it kind of colored my view of the original trilogy. And on top of that, because we watched A New Hope on Disney Plus, so we got all of the edits, what do you call them? Which version do they call it, where George went back and edited the original trilogy?
Yeah.
I know they have names, but I can't remember. Whatever. So anyway, George, we don't have the original A New Hope. We have the George edited version of A New Hope.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? But the interesting thing about watching the documentary was seeing how much of the original New Hope was based on limited budgets, limited time, limited story, the belief that they weren't going to get more. And what came out of that thing, multiple edits, different editors, not being able to shoot whatever the hell they want, and I think it created something very specific. And that's why when I watched the new versions, that the George edited version of The New Hope, and you see all of these random aliens in different spots kind of unnecessarily, I wonder that, like, if there are two Georges that you're running into. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, you guys watched The New Hope at least sometime recently. Did you watch this version with all of the extra effects and creatures added?
Yeah, that's all that I mean, I watched it on TV as it aired, so they only show you the new edited version. You have to go back and if you have your own personal catalog and library of like the
but
VHS
you're talking,
or DVDs.
Chris, yeah, but Chris is talking about there's extra on the Disney Plus version now, right?
Well, I know it's been edited. I think he's gone back over it twice.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm not mistaken. Like, I had the VHS version, which didn't have a lot of this stuff, but this is the quote-unquote McClunky version.
If I remember correctly, the version that was airing, at least since Disney, has always been like extra CGI characters. They even changed that song in the cantina. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, we're talking about the same one. Okay. There's no new one that came out this year. That's
Well, I had a DVD of it, and I don't remember watching the Jabba the Hutt and Han Solo scene.
That's on the Blu-ray and it's on the Blu-ray and the DVD. Like the 20th anniversary, whatever had that stuff.
Correct, but just to close the circle, whenever they air it on like television, they're going to air the new redux version. Right. They're not going to air any of the older versions.
Yeah.
Well, and I was watching it specifically looking to see if they added something that, like, if George went, there was a part of the story that I thought was really missing, and the only scene, but the only scene is the Han and Jabba scene, which I think is the worst scene in any of the 9 movies I have ever watched.
I thought the Cantina music video scene was worse than the Jabba scene. They create a whole new production.
Unnecessary.
Well, it's like a musical, man.
Yeah.
But in 2 minutes, it's like watching a musical. Terrible.
You're talking about the one in Jedi, right?
Oh, my bad. I'm confusing you. Yeah, it's in Jedi. It's not in New Hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, the New Hope is Han Solo. In order to make him walk across, they like physically in the computer just like lifted the Han Solo up and then dropped him.
Yeah, he steps on. I was watching that earlier. I was like, ugh.
But if you watch the scenes in Tatooine, like the desert scenes, they added extra sand animals just randomly walking across the desert.
Well, it wasn't just the background. There was
speeders.
When Luke and Obi-Wan are coming up to stop for the stormtroopers, they literally had things walk in front of the scene.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what are you doing? But the whole point of it is just that George Lucas has a pretty amazing talent in mind for some things, and then something like he needed the lack of budget, and he needed the time constraint, and he needed like kind of this confluence of events and people to kind of make this amazing, like bring his thing to life. Like Harrison Ford during it said, you know, George would look at you and go, but it's written this way. Why can't you do it?
Yeah, we see what happened with the prequels. His writing.
Yeah.
Well, and as we're watching Clone Wars, it has me thinking about the prequels and watching the original trilogy and all of this, and I'm trying to come up with how what is George Lucas? Is he this lucky guy with the original trilogy that was just a confluence of events? Is he really like the Michael Jordan of the entertainment? Or
is it more
is
like
he
Jerry Krause? he's fortunate. He does have an eye for talent, but he's also fortunate a lot of things went his way.
That's true.
Sleazy.
I don't.
Except for the part about Leia on Carrie Fisher and telling her to lose some of that baby fat.
Lose weight. There's no underwear in space.
Yeah.
Why isn't there underwear in space? I don't know.
Yeah, that part's a little sleazy.
She was 19 and Harrison Ford was like 33.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean that's common Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't know. I'm just kind of having a going whatever's coming to my mind right now, because is there anything about A New Hope you guys want to talk about? I could talk about an hour.
No, we won't do that. I do want to say it still ages pretty well. I mean, you could put it in now. Yeah, we're like nitpicking about added scenes here and there, whatnot. But the overall story, the chemistry between these three, again, we say Jerry Krause and George Lucas, but man, he lucked out on Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford, who at the time only did American Graffiti, I think, before this one, for A New Hope, with George Lucas. So he lucked out because he got great chemistry with those three guys. It was low budget, so it was tight and lean and mean. So you got straight to the point of the story. You had a wonderful score, John Williams. Damn, we didn't even talk about him. So, yeah, you could say he was a Jerry Krause, and the movie aged, just like the Bulls, they still aged pretty well. So,
yeah.
Well, if I would suggest you guys watch it, I would say the first 15 minutes was really fascinating about where him leaving college and trying to get that first movie gig and what happened, why he ended up making American Graffiti, and then how he managed to get the studio to let him make Star Wars. And, he really did make something pretty amazing. And
if I remember correctly, he also leaned on some of his college buddies, Francis Ford Coppola and Spielberg. I think they were all graduates of USC.
Oh yeah, that class. That's like one of those draft classes, and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing.
The '84 draft class. So he actually leaned to some of them for some studio help.
Oh, there was a fascinating bit about how he wanted Spielberg to direct Return of the Jedi, but because he had issues and had left the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild, he couldn't. And so that would have been a very seriously different movie, I think, if you got Steven Spielberg as the director of that third film.
Yeah, that would have been different. But yeah.
Well, I think the most interesting thing we watched this week, though, and newest, obviously, is we finished off the end of the Clone Wars series. And I'm going to call out a spoiler right up front.
I don't know, sir.
Of course you don't know. You don't know because only I know.
Don't care how I want it now.
That's right. I jumped into Clone Wars in the last 4 episodes.
And just did skip 7 seasons, 6.5 seasons.
But I'll tell you, I was hooked. I was very surprised. very delighted about what I saw in those 4 episodes. I think I'm going to go back and watch. I don't know if it's going to be like all 7 seasons.
No, it won't. It
Well,
won't be. Plus, you'll see the animation wasn't as crisp in the beginning. Very cartoon. Like my son made a comment too. Today we were watching the last scene with Vader and everything. He's like, "Wow, they really came a long way." I was like, "Holy cow!" He noticed that too.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, the animation on this last scene is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like almost movie quality. It's gotten better, much
Yeah.
better. So if you go back
Yeah.
and rewatch the earlier seasons, you might be disappointed here and there, but the theme, the key for you to see is the story is more developed than you would think. Like when you made him
Yeah.
comment about Darth Maul, that's how he was written in all of these animated shows, including Rebels, which spoiler, he meets his demise in Rebels, but a great scene too.
yeah, I knew that spoiler.
But
I mean,
they show you the evolution of his character more so than Lucas ever, I guess, intended to in the live action movie. So it's great, and they introduce you characters that you actually get interested in, and then we don't see them for a while, and then they come back and they're like, "Oh wow, this is so and so," and then you get a little excited. But yeah, once in a while they do have clunkers too. They have these side-off quests that you're like, I'm not interested in. Like the Bad Batch of clones. Mike knows what I'm talking about. They're like the A-team of the misfits of the clones that did somehow their DNA wasn't like properly spliced, so they all have like different mutations, or they're just different. And I guess that was probably another merchandising ploy to create these characters so they can sell the toys where you can play them in the video games. But ultimately, the story was lackluster with those characters. So again, don't go in thinking you're going to get the same level of quality you got in these final 3 episodes. But I'm glad that you do know that there's some good IP content, Star Wars based, that's out there for people like us and younger folks. My Serena was watching it too. So yeah, give it a shot.
yeah, I think I said I see what attracts kids to Anakin within like 5 minutes of that character being on screen, comparatively. And I know kids liked him out of the prequels, whatever, but this character is a lot more interesting. And when you have time to develop a character, you can get that.
But maybe it wasn't because of the time. Maybe it's because of the way Lucas writes these characters.
Well, I had this big mental question because my son had watched the prequels recently, maybe like a month ago. So I'm relatively fresh on the prequels. And I was trying to think of, as I finished this Clone Wars, they never went back. And again, we're in spoilers, everybody. They never went back to Anakin to do an animated version of some of the stuff we saw, right? At the end. They just let you, knowing that happened, stick with these other new characters. Mm-hmm. And so you couldn't really have this without that. Right? It would have been a different series if you were like, if the Attack of the Clones and the other prequels hadn't existed, you would have to write a different script for the end of this.
Yeah.
So there's that, but also just all right. Well, before I get all the way into that, let's talk to Mike about it, because I know, Mike, you were the one, you've watched probably the most of this series.
The Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've watched the whole thing. I didn't rewatch the whole series before 7
No,
came
but
out.
you've been at least time invested in this series.
I was looking forward to it. Yeah, and it did.
Well, what did you think had? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that a lot of it filled in a lot of blanks, right? And made it took like, to be honest, like 2 and 3 they were okay, but this kind of gave you that extra that you needed,
By the way, Mike,
or at least I did. So
the first 2 or 3 seasons, that was still under the Lucas films when George Lucas was owned Star Wars, right? I think the sale of Star Wars property was in the midst of the Clone Wars. and then
Yeah,
there was a
I'm pretty
shift.
sure.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
that's another key thing too, Chris. If you're not aware, I think I think after season, we'll look it up in a little bit later. After season 3 or so, that was under the Disney ownership and Kathleen Kennedy, our favorite executive in
Well, I
Hollywood.
think I remember one of the celebrations where people were really excited at the return of the Clone Wars
Yeah,
a few years ago.
because that's one of the few things that they said would remain canon outside of the movies. They said
Right.
that the
Yeah.
Clone Wars animated show would remain as canon and not made legends like the books and the video games, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Hmm.
So that was a shift in paradigm from the characters too. That if you go back and rewatch now, it's telltale. You can really see the difference between what Lucas had with like some of the characters, Yoda and Anakin. In fact, I don't remember Yoda being featured much in the earlier seasons. So something
No, they started bringing them on. Yeah,
yeah.
later. Yeah.
Well, Mike, how well do you think they cap? Do you think this is a good capper? Did you like the direction overall? I mean, as the longest running watcher, give us your take on the Clone Wars as a series.
Yeah. So the like I said, it did fill in some gaps. It gave you some extra information. I found it very entertaining, right? And what I can appreciate about this last season is that, like, I think I had mentioned this to you guys earlier, is that I think so. We know that Ahsoka is going to show up in season 2 of The Mandalorian, so this kind of set that story in motion, right? And it was good that we kind of left off with her at the end of this one. So when she does pop up for season 2, it'll be something to look forward to for sure. To find out where the hell she's been, right? After all this.
I mean, was she always the kind of quote main character, or did you feel like you were more following Obi-Wan and Anakin, and this kind of she just kind of came up out of nowhere? Or tell me, because
Well,
like I said,
no, the
if
thing
I
is,
popping in now, it looks like she's the main character.
no, this season was the last half of this season was meant to be about her because of what's going on with her showing up for next Mandalorian and kind of because she had shown up in Rebels, it was kind
Mm-hmm.
of a good filler. I don't think so. Originally, we were supposed to only have the 6 seasons, and those seasons focused on what was going on in between episodes 2 and 3 with Anakin and Obi-Wan, right? Like Ahsoka was always the Padawan, and then at the end of season 5, she left because she got fed up with the council, and then
Mm-hmm.
she didn't show up until we see her in this season, and we
Oh
kind of
wow,
see
that's
what.
a
Yeah, you didn't watch those. So she comes
Yeah,
back.
she hold on. She comes back before that. She comes back in Rebels. A bit of a time jump here.
That's what I mean. But Rebels takes place in the future. I'm not. I'm talking about
Yes.
in the timeline. In
Okay,
the
gotcha.
timeline, yeah, she left the council in season 5, and then she comes back on episode 6 or so of this season, and we kind of get a backstory of what she's been up to and who she's been hanging out with. Which also leads me to another question, James. You saw the other episodes with her and the 2 other girls, right? I wonder if they'll be back as well.
I think one of them, and this is me speculating here, is actually
Hmm.
the Mandalorian Smith, Iron Smith.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
that's
I
interesting.
tried to do a deep search in the actress, the dude who
Yeah.
does a voice, to see whether she is casted in the Mandalorian season 2 or season 1. I couldn't
Hmm.
find any correlation, but
No.
her mannerisms and her speech patterns to me was telling me this sounds just like that the female Mandalorian, and that was the
well, they
Smith.
just call her the Smith.
The Smith,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so
Right.
those were two. And again, it just thrust you these interesting characters, and they had you speculating, their tie-in to the
Yeah.
overall universe.
For our listeners, we're talking about Trace and Rafa. They're sisters, and they live on Coruscant. So Trace is the older sister, I think, and she's like she's a con artist and a smuggler and all kinds of stuff, and her sister is more of a techie and a mechanic, and so they team up. Ahsoka teams up with them for a while, and hijinks ensue, and then eventually she finds out during her time with them, she finds out about Maul, and then has to go back to the council to get all that taken care of, right?
Yeah, that's when that entire season really ramped up. Everything before that to me was a little bit lackluster. There was Anakin Obi-Wan scenes here and there. Then they had the A-Team clones. But once Ahsoka's reintroduced, and from that moment on to this finale, I thought this was a very well done series, Mike.
Well, let's talk a little bit about these last episodes and what we thought. So, I was surprised at what I got out of Darth Maul, and they kind of played a lot of what I thought were common Star Wars notes, but in a really good way, right? The Sith always having to ask the Jedi to join them, even when they're about to try to kill them, and the hallway sneaking around. I was like, oh, that feels a lot like New Hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. And then just the action overall, I thought the action was top notch. The whole Ahsoka jumping down through the battle in the air. I was like, oh man, that feels like the Winter Soldier. I'm watching the Winter Soldier now.
Hey Chris, did you see the clip that I sent you? I know Mike's seen it, but it shows you the mocap of the original actor Ray Park, who did Darth Maul in the Phantom Menace, and the actress was playing Ahsoka. They actually went through the choreography for that with mocap. So what you were watching, the animated, was based on their fight choreography.
Oh yeah, you could feel the Ray Park in the fight.
Yeah, we did that corkscrew spin of his from the movie, and he's holding.
And the double hit on the one side with the staff is very much him, and I don't think a normal animator would think of some of those specific moves.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. So I want to make sure you.
No. I'm just recollecting my thoughts.
It's not just animation for that fight sequence. It's an actual fight choreography. It's done really well.
Oh yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, the timing, the speed, everything looked really good. And I have to say, Ahsoka's use of double lightsabers, I finally got to see someone call a lightsaber and try to stab someone through the back.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's sweet. And then she takes the lightsabers, she drops them through the floor, and mentally force spins them.
Yeah, she did a core ring. That was cool.
Right? Yeah. Just so
how
many.
She Anakin's Padawan. She seems like, well, from what we've seen of Anakin throughout the animated shows and the movies, she seems to be on his level.
Yeah,
I mean,
one thing I appreciate is, like, in season 1, you see how young she is, and they actually did age her, so and gave her skills got way better over time. So,
she's got a very unique fighting style too. It's not something you see with a lot of other Jedis,
right?
And I mean, I don't want to sit here and name off all her moves because, man, I could. That was sweet.
She was good.
But
you got to see the.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just gonna say when she meets up with Vader again later on
in Rebels. Yeah, it's one of the best fight scenes of all the animated shows.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess I'll have to go through and check that out because I haven't
seen it. because with just like this one, the music score, and then like the anticipation of the fight, and then the dialogue that they have before it actually goes down, which this one did well too. Like the conversation that Darth Maul had with Ahsoka about the Republic and the Empire from a certain point of view. Like they're just giving all these little tidbits of like candy from the movies, is tying it all in, and you just feel like, oh man, he's laying down the whole exposition, but it's still entertaining. It's still exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't. It
No,
didn't
you
feel
know what
like
I liked?
it was this separate content. It definitely felt like it was part of the universe,
No,
and the way,
what was really
yeah,
cool to me was that because Maul was talking about all this, explaining all this, but it was because he was just coming to the realization of it himself,
Yep. Yep.
of what a pawn he really was,
Yep.
and he was like, "Oh, brilliant!"
Dude, because as he was talking, he was getting more clarity. He was like, wait, wait, oh, you see his eyes, like, he's realizing even further as
Yeah.
he told her about the situation. It's becoming illuminated for him. That was just great writing, man.
well, he
Yes.
had taken the clone, and then he had forced the information out of him about who Ahsoka
Mm.
was, so that
Hmm.
he could do that. But all of it linked together, and he felt. You could see it. You're right. You could see it. The animation in his eyes, in his mannerisms, about he was coming to conclusions, and then was able to lay into Ahsoka in a classic Sith manner, where he's basically telling the truth.
Join
But
me,
you know,
and together we can
right.
take down the Emperor.
And he almost got her if he hadn't said, as always, the Sith always add too much information. If he
Right.
hadn't said he was,
Fucking Sidious.
if you, if he hadn't said he was gonna kill Anakin,
Yeah.
he almost had
Well,
her.
he
Which
was still.
I actually.
He was telling the truth about Anakin, but he should have kept that to himself because Ahsoka wouldn't have believed it, that he was turning, that he was
Yeah.
part of the fall of the Jedi. That's what undid that whole
But
temptation.
that that was the interesting thing to me because remember when Moss set up the trap on Mandalore, it was for Anakin. But
Yep.
the thing
Anakin and
that
Obi-Wan.
really thing I really liked about that was he knew he needed to kill Anakin, but he didn't know why. He just had that vision that Anakin was the key, but he didn't understand everything
Oh, that's
everything
sad. You know
around
what?
it.
That makes it even more sad for me because Mike, you and I know, where he ends up with another vision and not knowing why,
Yeah.
but felt like he was compelled to follow it through. Damn, the Force is a son of a bitch. I mean, I just like Darth Maul now, I realize, holy cow, I see where this is ultimately going to end with these visions that he's getting, and he knows they're important, but he doesn't know why, what's it serving. Damn it.
Exactly. And I also love his quips, telling Ahsoka she's got Kenobi's arrogance, and why would Kenobi send you? Like he's still so pissed at Kenobi for cutting him in half,
Yeah. When he begged her, well, he didn't beg her, but he was like, "Can I?" When she freed him, he goes, "Can I get a saber for a fighting chance?" He's like, "I'm not rooting for you." She said that. I'm not rooting for you.
Okay, that hallway scene with Darth Maul was without the lightsaber was fabulous.
Exactly.
He was
yeah,
decapitated guys.
Dude, when my son saw that first decapitation, my son was like, "Oh, they're going there, Dad. They're going there."
Oh, and then he takes the guy's arm off.
Pulls the guy's arm through the sliding door, and then you just see the hand drop, and then he takes the communicator. All right, Disney.
But that was very remnant of the
Rogue One,
the Rogue One scene.
Yeah. Without a lightsaber, mind you.
That's what people were comparing it to. Yeah. That end scene.
That and Daredevil in the no, definitely not that same ending.
No.
So yeah, I think the ending. Now I think, do I have to watch more? I mean, the ending. If we jump forward and before we get there, my question is: they opened the doors. You can see the planet as the ship is crashing, and yet all of the clones just go and they stand on the deck. If I'm not mistaken, if you open those doors, you create a giant vacuum. Should technically suck all those people.
I would assume that the shield was on, the airlock shield.
I guess, because friggin' Darth Maul gets in the ship and flies away and whatever.
Yeah, for half a second, I thought he might have reservations on leaving her, and then nope.
I thought so too.
No.
in his
Well,
eyes for a second, I thought he was like, "Should I?" And he was like, "Nope."
no, he said something about you wanted this chaos and now you got it. 'Cause
Right.
that's what she told him she wanted out of him.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he was more than happy to leave her behind. But that was a good, interesting fight. Her kind of tanking for Rex to shoot everybody. So
Did you feel the loss of the droids as they were getting taken out?
Oh,
okay,
I
the
did.
the
Oh,
face
yeah.
shotting the droids was a
Yeah.
step too far.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you hear them go, right before they start getting blasted.
Uh-huh.
But droid's a little OP. She's like with 3 droids, she controlled that entire ship from wherever they were. She was like, "Yeah, open the hangar bay doors, open that door, get me there, move that." And the one droid put his hands up. Did you see that?
Yeah, still got shot, blasted.
I gotta imagine though that once they had Anakin's passcode, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Which
That's
was
true.
8108, the release date of the Clone Wars movie.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Nice.
August 2008. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I was looking because I was going TV to TV, so watching the show, and I accidentally started the movie, and I'm like, what the hell is Jabba the Hutt doing in here? No. Wrong thing.
The movie was good. I saw it in the theater.
Hey, Mike, did you catch another Easter egg at the end? When Vader picks up the saber?
No, I must have missed it.
So he looks up, and it looks like a bird, an avian creature.
Okay.
It's flying.
Oh, I was wondering what that was.
Okay, so in Rebels,
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
there's these forced-like. It was a couple of forced-like creatures. You got the wolves, you got the big space worm thing, but the birds. If you remember in the final fight between her and Vader, when she looks like she's about to get entombed in that temple after that Sith holocron thing is, there's these birds that are flying around her that they're force sensitive that she's connected to.
Oh, right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Ah, good call. I did. Yeah, I wouldn't remember that at all.
No, I only knew because I did a deep dive after the movie before I went back to work, and somebody actually posted it. So I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh crap! Yeah, makes sense."
Wow, nice.
Well, I have to say that was a pretty cool scene with all the buried clone troopers and their helmets on the sticks.
Yeah, very dark.
Yeah,
it looks like a soldier.
Yeah,
the rifle. What was missing is the boots.
Mm-hmm.
Even before the Empire got there, and Rex had just finished burying them, put the shovel back up on the shuttle.
Wait, so when did you guys realize this was Hoth?
I didn't. I was
know
sitting there, and I'm like,
Go ahead.
So I was watching, and they do the burial, and I'm like, okay, and then it shifts, and I'm like, are we this is Snow? It's got the Empire. It's got classic Empire, and I'm like, what? Where are we? What happened? Did we move? I missed it. What did I miss? And then it's obviously Snow, and Vader's there, and he finds it. He finds the lightsaber. I didn't know it was Hoth, but I was like, oh, this planet has 2 different climates? Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
That was what weirded me out, was the planet had 2 different climates.
Which is normal in the real world, but somehow in the Star Wars world just doesn't exist. What if Cloud City actually has land and both? But they're technology advanced society, so they decide to live in the clouds. It's not a gas giant planet. Oh, Star Wars. Star Wars is teaching people the worst things about astronomy.
That's right. But did you look up that's Hoth, or is that a guess?
It's a strong guess from a couple of our websites. Because they haven't released a full recap because the episode just came out at midnight. But a couple things that stood out: the snowstorm troopers, the same the droids that they used in Empire, and then when the destroyer is entering the atmosphere, if you look at it closely, most of that planet is already covered in white, except for where they're landing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch that again then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know how much snow had to fall to get to the top of the? It's like 6 feet of snow to get to the top of those sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 3 feet, 3 feet, not 6 feet. But anyway. Well, I think I'm glad I watched it. I'm gonna be a new series. Gonna have to get invested again.
Yeah, you got to check out
And
Rebels too because Rebels for me started slow and then it really picked up and I was like, oh
Oh
man, this is
yeah, I
good.
forgot. It was extremely slow in the beginning. To the
Yeah,
point where I
well,
didn't think
but
I was going to stick with the show.
yeah,
Star
but
Wars
then
loves
it
to
got yeah.
release. Star Wars loves to release things in the wrong order. So the fact that they released Rebels, which tells you what happens to Maul, uh, before they released Clone Wars, and they kind of kill some of that oomph to themselves. But I
Well,
don't. It's not on purpose.
that's not kind
It's
of what
just like,
happened. They kind of remember this says I don't think this season was originally going to happen, right?
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
when they got the green light, they said, okay, let's do Maul and Ahsoka's story.
mhm.
So I think what happened was because they finished Clone Wars and they were doing Rebels, and then they brought Maul back, and so now they could go back and say, well, what happened to Maul up until Rebels, right? So,
Wait, did Clone Wars come out before Rebels?
oh yeah,
Yeah, it did.
Clone
It
Wars
did.
was
It
the
did.
first one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Rebels was, I believe, 4 or 5 seasons, maybe. Um,
4 seasons for
after Clone
Rebels.
Wars had already ended. Yeah.
Yep.
Ah, so my timeline's all screwed up. I didn't realize that.
Mm.
I thought it was they did Rebels and they did Clone Wars.
My issue with the beginning of Clone Wars is not because of the time jump. It's because I felt like at least the first season was written just for like kids, and then
Which I mean, that's fine.
yeah, you see some.
Exactly.
It's a little.
Exactly.
It's very wonky in the beginning. You're like, oh, this is like watching one of
Yeah.
those Saturday animated TV shows. It just happens to have characters from a universe that you like Marvel Avengers
Yeah.
XD, right? Oh, Hulk is
Right,
making breakfast for the Avengers. Oh, this is cute.
right.
But then it turns like you can start seeing how serious it gets in season 2, and then it gets dark later on, but still, still kind of
Hmm.
still gives you some of the kids connections. And then the last 2 seasons, it's like you figure that the kids who watched it in the first season are now like adult teenagers. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
guess the writers were writing for that demographic.
Well, after
Did you
this, I
guys?
think it'd almost be interesting to have some sort of machete order where you could
Oh dear lord!
No, I don't think
find
I
the
don't think
right
it's necessary
episodes.
for this. I don't think it's necessary though,
Well,
because you're
Well,
not
it
learning.
depends. If you're gonna watch the entire franchise, everything is Star Wars related,
Hmm.
that's canon,
Yeah.
then yeah, I can see
Right.
what Chris is getting at.
Mm.
Well, it's like I still haven't done it. I want to watch Rogue One and The New Hope directly after, and maybe I'll do that soon.
Yeah.
Because I
That's a
want
good
to see how that feels when you're watching those things.
idea.
And as you guys, I have always been really down, and even more than you guys on the last one, on the prequel trilogy, and you know, trying to get into Lucas's head. What was he trying to accomplish with it? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, did he want to tell the story of Sidious, or did he want to tell the story of Anakin? What is he getting at?
But you know what I get out of it? It's more of the story of Obi-Wan, really.
Well, and that's a possibility too.
Yeah.
But what you have here is, okay, did he start Anakin at 10 because he happened to be on the same planet and he wanted this rhyming thing? Is there something more interesting, like a Clone Wars movie would be more interesting middle part? Like if you did
Hmm.
Attack of the Clones, which is the discovery of the clone army and all that, the start of the
Right.
Clone Wars, and then you did like a Clone Wars movie, which is based on this Clone Wars series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you did,
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith. Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith. Would that be a more interesting series than, woohoo, this is pod racing, and could you tell a more interesting tale?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of it he could have nixed like the whole uh, Anakin born as Jesus, the mom,
Hmm.
there was
Right.
no father, blah, blah, blah. So maybe they find an orphan boy, right, who's strong
Well,
with
I
the
mean,
Force or something.
With a broom,
one of the thing
sweeping with a broom.
in
Ah,
one of the
there you
big
go.
things in the documentary is how when he was writing this, he was really into the hero's journey and classic literature and that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
what we see out of Luke isn't like a chosen one narrative. Luke is a accidentally pulled into this, even though he eventually becomes like obviously a major part of it. He isn't the chosen one.
Hmm.
So Lucas going back and doing the chosen one narrative, you know, I don't know. It just it never felt like it really rang strong as a strong story, and maybe that's just the directing that didn't just come out right. Maybe with too much time in committee, but I really like some of the bits and pieces, and we know George overall has good ideas for stories. You know,
Yeah,
I just like how some of these characters give you more depth than you got in the movies. Even in these few couple of episodes, it didn't take a 7 seasons for me to like Maul better. You
right.
know. Ugh. Well, okay, we're about an hour. I think that's where we want to uh, finish our podcast.
Hmm.
So I'm going to give you guys anything you want to say Star Wars related at all. Clone Wars, trilogy, documentaries, anything.
I just wanted to say, despite the stumbles and failures of the recent live action trilogy, this is still one of my favorite, if not favorite, sci-fi geek nerd, whatever you want to call it, IP content in my childhood and adult life. So
Hmm.
I'm very critical at times, only because I care about it so much. So that's why I'm passionate about my opinions on some of these series and shows and cartoons and games and
Yeah,
whatnot. But it's just it's amazing that in my close to 44 years of life, I really really find myself attached to this franchise, and I know I'm not the only one. Some people are probably more obsessed than I am, and some like Kathy Kennedy could care less. That being said, it looks like there's still some light with this film. No pun intended. There's still some light with this franchise with certain people who are in key roles at Lucasfilm that are continuing to give us some good content, and I'm excited for that. That's all. May the fourth be with
All right. Mike, what do you got to say for yourself?
well, I'm going to agree with pretty much what James said there, and I'm just going to add that if you haven't seen this final season of Clone Wars, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it. I think the last 4 episodes of this Clone Wars was better than any of the last three movies we had. So it was the Star Wars we needed, and that's where I'll leave it.
All right. Well, for me, I think I've been the most positive about the sequels here, and I think I've liked more than I've disliked. Even how strong I felt about the prequels, I've still watched them. I've still watched them multiple times. There's still content that's good for a variety of people, and I like the fact that I enjoyed learning about the Clone Wars. It's not a part of the Star Wars brand that I commonly partake, and so I'm glad to get more new content, and Mandalorian and other new television and movies. I'm glad they're not stopping. I don't think there's any reason for them to stop. I think they've been more successful than not successful. Um, and I just want more. I'll take it. I'll take all of it. Give it good and bad. I'd rather argue about the bad and than not have it. Right.
True.
All right, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for joining me on this episode, Star Wars based episode. I enjoyed our talk as always.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
I am one with the Force. The Force is one with me.